You ever notice how most best westerns lists circle the same old dusty saloons and shootouts, but almost nobody talks about the guy who changed the whole game from behind a typewriter? Elmore Leonard wasn't just writing westerns, he was rewriting the rules, one lean, mean story at a time. So here's a challenge. How many of your favorites came straight from Leonard's wild mind, ready to ride with the toughest, most twisted, and flat-out coolest westerns ever put to film? Hold tight, these picks don't pull their punches. 310 to Yuma 1957. Some westerns start with a bang. 310 to Yuma starts with a simmer and cranks up the pressure until you feel like you're sitting on that train platform, sweating bullets alongside everyone else. This isn't just another black hat versus white hat showdown. It's a psychological chess match where every move might be your last. Glenn Ford, who usually played good guys, flips the script as Ben Wade, a smooth-talking outlaw with a quiet menace that makes your skin crawl. Van Heflin is Dan Evans, the desperate rancher who needs the reward money but maybe needs his dignity even more. Here's where it gets wild. Elmore Leonard wrote the original short story, and the filmmakers had the guts to keep the spirit intact. This isn't about who's fastest on the draw. It's about who cracks first under the weight of their own conscience. The tension isn't just in the standoff, it's in every sideways glance, every muttered threat, every silent moment that stretches just a second too long. Director Delmer Daves, known for wringing drama from the tiniest gestures, keeps the action tight and the stakes sky high. There's barely a wasted frame. Every shot feels like it's been sanded down to its raw nerve. The dialogue is pure Leonard, smart, quick, loaded with a kind of unsentimental poetry that could only come from someone who knew both pulp fiction and real-life struggle. What's most shocking about 310 to Yuma is how much it influenced everything that came after. You like High Noon? You love Rio Bravo? Both those movies felt the ripple effect from Leonard's powder keg showdown. The ending was so controversial that some critics called it unrealistic, but the audience knew better. They saw the real game. Two broken men, trapped by circumstances, forced to choose between survival and their own battered code. If you think westerns are all about dusty showdowns and simple heroes, 310 to Yuma is the gut punch that proves you wrong. It's not just a classic, it's a blueprint, and it's the kind of movie that makes you wonder, when the clock's ticking down, what kind of person are you, really? Hombre 1967. Some westerns are all hats and horseshoes. Hombre is pure attitude, a cinematic middle finger to every polite, sanitized western that came before it. And you know what? It needed to be. Based on Leonard's 1961 novel, this is the film that gave Paul Newman one of his coldest, quietest, and most dangerous roles. John Russell, a white man raised by Apaches and treated as an outcast by pretty much everyone around him. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, people listen, or at least they should. Director Martin Ritt strips the genre down to its bare bones. A handful of stagecoach passengers, a deadly ambush, and a fight for survival where every alliance is temporary and nobody is truly innocent. It's a setup that could have been formulaic, but in Leonard's world, nobody gets off that easily. Russell isn't your typical hero. He's stubborn, wounded, and never lets anyone forget what it cost him to survive. When the group is attacked by outlaws, the so-called respectable folks are suddenly begging the man they used to shun to save their hides. Irony much. The supporting cast is a murderer's row of classic Hollywood. Richard Boone oozes menace as the bandit Cicero Grimes. Frederick March plays a corrupt Indian agent with the moral backbone of a rattlesnake. And Diane Cilento brings unexpected strength as the boarding house operator who challenges Russell's isolation. Every performance is sharp, but it's Newman's barely restrained fury that burns a hole in the screen. He doesn't care about being liked, he just cares about what's right, and he's willing to walk alone to prove it. What's wild is how Hombre uses its slow build to crank up the pressure. The desert isn't just a backdrop, it's a crucible, burning away pretense until only the truth is left. Leonard himself loved this adaptation, and for good reason. It doesn't flinch from the ugliness of prejudice, survival, or sacrifice. The result? A western that feels just as angry, relevant, and quietly radical today as it did in 1967. Hombre doesn't want your applause. It wants your respect, and it earns it the hard way. The Tall T, 1957. Some westerns swagger, but The Tall T creeps up on you with a smile, a handshake, and then pulls the rug out from under your boots. Adapted from Elmore Leonard's short story, The Captives, this is the kind of film that proves you don't need a stampede of extras or a wall of dynamite to rattle an audience. You just need real tension, real danger, and characters you're not sure will make it out alive. Randolph Scott stars as Pat Brennan, a rancher with the kind of stubborn decency that marks all of Leonard's best heroes. The film kicks off with a moment of pure Western simplicity. Brennan, down on his luck, loses his horse in a bet and ends up hitching a ride on a stagecoach. Within minutes, the ordinary trip spirals into a nightmare. Richard Boone, an actor who could steal a scene with a raised eyebrow, plays Frank Usher, the kind of outlaw who's more terrifying for being polite. He's not looking for chaos, just a clean score. But that's the problem. You can never predict what desperation will do to a man. What sets The Tall T apart is how it strips away the frills. There's no grand score swelling in the background, no silver-tongued lawman riding to the rescue. Director Bud Boydachir gives us a tight, sun-bleached thriller where the threat feels real and the choices hurt. The hostages, Brennan, a newlywed heiress, Maureen O'Sullivan, and her cowardly husband, aren't just chess pieces. They're people, each unraveling under the strain. Leonard's fingerprints are all over the dialogue, from the quiet, biting humor to the sudden, raw honesty that surfaces when the stakes are life or death. And then there's the ending. Bleak, unsentimental, but somehow hopeful in that stubborn, dogged Leonard way. The Tall T isn't about riding off into the sunset. It's about crawling out of the dirt, bruised but unbroken, with a sliver of decency still intact. No wonder this one is a favorite of both genre buffs and heavyweight directors. Scorsese himself has sung its praises. If you want a Western that doesn't just play the hits, but makes you feel every note, The Tall T stands tall. No apologies. Valdez Is Coming, 1971. Valdez Is Coming doesn't open with a bang. It opens with a man who's just had enough. Burt Lancaster's Bob Valdez isn't your typical movie gunslinger. He's older, quieter, and doesn't bother with the flash. But make no mistake, this is a man you do not want to cross. Based on Leonard's 1970 novel, this film is all about what happens when you push a good man too far. At first, Valdez is just a constable in a small western town, caught in the crossfire of a rich man's schemes. He's forced to kill a man he believes is guilty, only to find out he was tricked. When Valdez tries to do right by the dead man's widow, just a measly $100, Frank Tanner, the local cattle baron, shows just how ugly power can get. Tanner's goons beat Valdez, tie him to a cross, and leave him for dead in the desert. Bad move. What follows isn't a rampage. It's a methodical, simmering campaign of justice, with Valdez, now battered, relentless, and armed with a shotgun, turning the tables, one calculated step at a time. Leonard's script is less about revenge than about restoring balance, and Lancaster sells it with every weathered line on his face. He's not driven by rage. He's driven by an unshakable sense of what's right. The tension isn't just in the gunfights, but in the silent moments where you see Valdez weighing every choice, never letting anger get the better of him. Director Edwin Sharon lets the story breathe, giving us a frontier that feels less like a playground and more like a battlefield for the soul. The film doesn't play it safe either. The ending is famously unresolved, a brutal standoff that refuses to wrap things up with a bow. Even Leonard was surprised they got away with it. There's a gravity to Valdez Is Coming that sticks with you. This is a Western for grown-ups, angry, thoughtful, and quietly devastating. By the end, you realize the most dangerous thing in the West isn't a quick draw. It's a good man who won't back down. Joe Kidd, 1972. There's something uniquely electric about a Western where you can practically smell the sweat and betrayal, and Joe Kidd delivers all that and more, with Clint Eastwood squinting down the barrel of Elmore Leonard's original screenplay. It's not just another showdown in the sun, it's a movie born from chaos, both on the page and on the set. Leonard wrote the script, and by all accounts, he was rewriting it even as the cameras rolled. The production was famously turbulent. Director John Sturges, once a giant of the genre, was spiraling thanks to booze and burnout, leaving Eastwood to muscle the film across the finish line with pure, stubborn charisma. Eastwood plays Joe Kidd, a hard-drinking hired gun who doesn't give a damn about anybody's cause, until he suddenly does. Hired by a ruthless land baron, Robert Duvall, perfectly oily, Kidd is sent to crush a rebellion of Mexican landowners. But as the bullets start to fly and alliances get murky, Kid realizes he's on the wrong side of history. It's not some grand epiphany, just a slow, smoldering shift as only Eastwood can play it. There's a classic Leonard touch here. Nobody's entirely good, nobody's entirely bad, and loyalty is as slippery as a rattlesnake in a dust storm. For all the on-set dysfunction, Joe Kidd has moments that feel razor-sharp thanks to Leonard's dry wit and a handful of lines that could stop a fistfight. The landscapes are gorgeous, the action is mean and efficient, and the mood is pure 1970s anti-heroism, gritty, cynical, and deeply aware that the West was built by people who didn't trust each other an inch. Duvall's villain steals the show, and you can sense Leonard's glee in writing a baddie who's as charming as he is cruel. But the real legacy of Joe Kidd might be what happened off camera. Eastwood never let another director call the shots on a Western again. After this, it was all him, all the time. So when you watch Joe Kidd, you're not just seeing a tight, nasty little Western. You're seeing the moment Eastwood decided to become a legend on his own terms. And that's pure Elmore Leonard. Messy, unsentimental, and twice as tough as it needs to be. The Moonshine War, 1970. Now here's a curveball. The Moonshine War isn't your granddad's classic six-shooter Western. Instead, it's a mean Prohibition-era slice of Leonard that swaps spurs for bootleggers and makes the lawlessness of the Old West look downright polite. Set in rural Kentucky, the story is all Leonard, crooked lawmen, two-bit gangsters, and regular folks caught in the crossfire. It's not a frontier tale, but it's Western to its bones, a battle for turf, pride, and survival, with every handshake hiding a knife behind the back. Patrick McGoohan plays Frank Long, a government agent who comes sniffing around the backwoods stills, looking to shake down his old army buddy, Son Martin, played by Alan Alda. Son's not interested in partnering up, and things spiral as Long brings in an out-of-town gangster to muscle him into a cut. The result? Explosions, double crosses, and more bare-knuckle tension than most straight-up Westerns can muster. Leonard's trademark dialogue crackles, and the sense of place, hot, sticky, and dangerous, makes you want to wipe the sweat off your brow. What sets the Moonshine War apart is that sense of dark, almost Coen Brothers-style humor. Nobody trusts anybody, and just when you think a character might have a shot at redemption, Leonard yanks the rug out with a twist. The violence is sudden and nasty, and there's never a clear line between the heroes and villains. In this world, even the good guys have mud on their boots. The film didn't make a huge splash at the box office, but if you want to see Leonard's storytelling at its most twisted and unpredictable, this is the one to watch. You get a taste of his later crime novels, those cool, snappy rhythms, the dry one-liners, the total disregard for Hollywood's old-timey notions of justice. The Moonshine War isn't a classic Western, but it's a reminder that Leonard could take any genre, throw it in a whiskey barrel, and make it kick like a mule. It's Western, crime, and black comedy all in one. You just need the guts to drink it straight. Last Stand at Saber River, 1997 TV movie. Some Westerns are all dust and swagger. Last Stand at Saber River is about scars that never heal. Forget the classic shootout for a minute. This is a slow-burn, character-driven tale that brings the grit and weariness of Leonard's post-war West to brutal life. Tom Selleck, mustache in full command, steps into the boots of Paul Cable, a Confederate veteran trying to bring his battered family home to Arizona after the Civil War. But home isn't what it used to be, and the land Cable wants to reclaim is now occupied by Union loyalists who have no intention of giving it up without a fight. From the first frame, the film crackles with tension. You can feel the Civil War's shadow hanging over every conversation, every twitch of a hand near a gun. The real enemy isn't always the guy on the other side of the fence. It's old grudges, trauma, and the bitter knowledge that survival sometimes means crossing lines you swore you never would. Leonard's novel always had a deep ache at its core, and the adaptation keeps that pain front and center. Nobody is untouched. Everybody is dangerous. Selleck's performance is a quiet powerhouse. He plays Cable as a man haunted by violence, doing his best to lay down arms even as fate and fury keep dragging him back. Susie Amos, as Martha Cable, isn't just window dressing. She's strong, wounded, and absolutely essential to her husband's journey. The supporting cast is pure Western gold. Keith and David Carradine as the fiercely territorial Kidston brothers, bristling with resentment and just enough decency to keep things complicated. Director Dick Lowry never rushes. Instead, he lets the landscape and the wounds breathe. building to a series of confrontations that are as much about identity and honor as they are about bullets. There's action, sure, gunfights, betrayals, desperate standoffs, but every scene is loaded with the sense that peace is always just out of reach. Last Stand at Saber River is one of those rare TV movies that feels bigger than the small screen. It's a testament to Leonard's gift, turning simple plots into psychological knife fights and reminding us that in the West, going home can be the most dangerous move of all. Desperado, the Outlaw Wars 1989 TV movie. The word desperado gets tossed around a lot in Westerns, but Elmore Leonard's take has more bite than bravado. Desperado, The Outlaw Wars, is the third in a string of TV movies penned by Leonard, and it's where his gift for pulp storytelling collides with the classic six-gun myth. Forget larger-than-life heroes. Leonard's world is all about men trying to outrun their pasts, carve a place in a rigged game, and survive on a code nobody else respects. Our anti-hero is Duell McCall, played by Alex MacArthur with a battered charm that makes you root for him, even when you know he's in way over his head. McCall isn't writing for justice, he's just trying to stay alive, clear his name, and maybe get a good night's sleep in a world that's always one step away from chaos. The Outlaw Wars picks up with McCall framed for murder and thrust into the middle of a brutal feud between lawmen and outlaws, where every favor comes with a price and every handshake hides a knife. Leonard's script is pure, pulpy fun, fast-paced, sharp-tongued, and never afraid to get its boots dirty. The violence isn't stylish, it's sudden and ugly, with lives ruined or lost in the time it takes to blink. The supporting cast is stacked with genre veterans, and the desert landscape feels less like a backdrop and more like a relentless adversary. What makes it sing, though, is Leonard's refusal to glorify anything. The wars in the title aren't just shootouts. They're moral, emotional, and as messy as the real thing. For all the TV budget constraints, The Outlaw Wars pulses with personality. There's dry humor, moments of true heartbreak, and a parade of characters who are never quite what they seem. The ending doesn't offer redemption on a platter. In Leonard's universe, everyone walks away with a new scar, and nobody gets to ride off untouched. It's Western noir for the small screen, and it proves that you don't need a cinema budget to hit hard. You just need the guts to go where the story takes you. Desperado, Avalanche at Devil's Ridge, 1988, TV movie. Don't let the made-for-TV tag fool you. Desperado, Avalanche at Devil's Ridge packs more punch than a saloon full of outlaws on payday. By this point, Elmore Leonard had the Desperado series humming like a six-shooter, and this second installment might just be the most taut and ruthless of the bunch. Leonard's script zeroes in on the kind of story he did best: the wrong man, the wrong place, and a whole heap of trouble just waiting to drop. Alex MacArthur returns as Duell McCall, the wandering gun for hire with a knack for finding trouble even when he's running from it. This time, McCall's quest to clear his name and shake off his criminal past leads him to Devil's Ridge, a place as unfriendly as its name suggests. The plot wastes no time. After a blizzard traps McCall and a small band of travelers in a remote outpost, alliances start to fray and suspicions run hotter than the stove in a snowstorm. Leonard's signature is all over it. The danger isn't just the weather, but the people trapped inside, each with a secret and a score to settle. What's great here isn't just the setup, but how the story leans into claustrophobia and paranoia. Every character has an agenda, and nobody, including McCall, is sure who to trust. The tension is physical and psychological. Even a cup of coffee feels like a potential betrayal. The supporting cast, especially John Rhys Davies, as a blustery, enigmatic lawman, chews up every inch of the screen. And when violence breaks out, it's abrupt, messy, and utterly unsentimental. Pure Leonard. For a TV movie, the production values hold their own, with location shots that capture both the bleak beauty of the Rockies and the creeping danger inside the cabin. And while McCall is no shiny hero, he's the guy you want at your back when bullets and tempers start flying. By the end, what sticks isn't just the body count. It's the sense that in Leonard's world, survival means trusting your gut, keeping your hand close to your gun, and never ever believing the snow will wash away your sins. Gunsight's 1987 TV miniseries. If you ever wanted to see Leonard's brand of Western stretched to epic scale, Gunsight's is your ticket. This two-part TV miniseries, based on his 1979 novel, is all about the blurry line between friendship and rivalry when the West is changing faster than a bullet in flight. The story isn't content with a single hero or villain. Instead, it dives into a tangled web of alliances, betrayals, and moral ambiguity that feels more Shakespeare than Saturday Matinee. At the heart of it all are two ex-army buddies, Dana Moon, a half-Apache scout turned peacekeeper, and Brendan Early, a legendary gunman whose reputation is both his armor and his curse. Their uneasy alliance anchors a sprawling drama set against the Arizona copper wars of the early 20th century. The land is being carved up, fortunes are being made and lost, and both men find themselves pawns in a game played by railroad tycoons, mining barons, and corrupt politicians. Leonard's dialogue is as tight as ever, giving the characters a lived-in realism, from the cocky ranch hands to the hard-edged women who refuse to sit quietly on the sidelines. Director Harry Falk isn't afraid to let the story breathe. There are gunfights, ambushes, and moments of pure, standoff suspense. But what lingers are the relationships, friendships cracking under the strain, old grudges that never quite die, and moments where even the right choice feels wrong. The West here isn't romanticized. It's a place of shifting loyalties and hard choices, where survival often means selling out or standing alone. The cast brings depth and grit, with George Kennedy and Ed Lauder anchoring a mix of TV and film veterans. While Gunsight doesn't have the explosive pace of Leonard's best feature films, it nails the complexity of his world, where every good man has a bit of outlaw in him, and nobody rides away clean. For fans of character-driven westerns with a cynical edge, this is a rare and rewarding ride, proof that Leonard's reach stretched far beyond the printed page. The Bounty Hunter's 1954 TV adaptation. Before Hollywood even knew what hit it, Elmore Leonard was sneaking his brand of cool, cynical western into living rooms across America. The Bounty Hunters, a 1954 television adaptation of Leonard's short story, is the true deep cut on this list. It might be old and nearly forgotten, but it's pure Leonard, hard, fast, and full of characters who'd sell their own boots for a shot at easy money. Set against the relentless backdrop of the frontier, the story centers on a pair of bounty hunters chasing a fugitive with a price on his head. The twist? They're not alone. The prairie is crawling with competitors, cutthroats, desperate drifters, and lawmen who will bend the rules for the right payday. There's no hero on a white horse here, just a parade of desperate souls willing to risk everything for a few dollars and a little dignity. Even as a TV episode, The Bounty Hunters feels like a full-length Leonard flick, dialogue that snaps like a whip, characters who reveal their flaws in a heartbeat, and a plot that tightens like a noose the closer everyone gets to the prize. The sense of danger is constant, not just from bullets, but from the temptation to betray, the lure of greed, and the realization that in Leonard's universe, the line between lawman and outlaw is always razor thin. This early adaptation doesn't have the polish of later films, but its rawness works in its favor. It's a blueprint for everything that would come after. Ordinary people caught up in the West's endless hustle, and a storyteller who never let anyone, audience, or character get comfortable for long. The Bounty Hunters is proof that Leonard's vision for the Western was always ahead of its time, and it still holds up for anyone willing to dig a little deeper. So, what did we learn after riding through Elmore Leonard's wildest Wests? Nobody survives clean, no showdown goes as planned, and every legend is just a little bit tarnished, exactly how Leonard liked it. Which of these rough and ready gems would you stake your reputation on? Drop your favorite in the comments, and tell us which Leonard story you'd want to see get the Hollywood treatment next. And if you think the golden age of the Western is dead, just wait. Leonard's still got bullets left in the chamber.